Welcome to another episode of Successfully Unsuccessful. I'm your host, Josh Dietrich, and here physically in the house in St. Michael is my boy, Mr. Jordan Olmscheid. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for
So
having me.
good to see you. Yeah, dude, for sure. In fact, we just sat down and had a nice little chat, living the life of investment management, talking through big investments. So thanks for coming by and spending time to share your story.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Well, what I love to just dive in right away is the fact that Jordan is what you would call and describe yourself as a solopreneur, which I think is so cool because oftentimes that's sort of left for other people's interpretation, not necessarily. And even when I first met you, you said, I'm a solopreneur. Mm-hmm. And so for you, what is that? What do you do, Jordan? Tell us about your solopreneur just right now, and then we'll unpack the story.
Sure. Yeah. So right now I call myself a cleaning contractor. So I do window cleaning, gutter cleaning, and power washing. Mostly commercial. Do a little bit of residential, but we can get into that later. But yeah, I used to do a lot more residential, but I'm pretty much fully commercial now. So yeah, as a solopreneur, I'm cleaning glass. I'm out there in the field, usually from about 6 a.m. till about 3 p.m. Handle customer follow-ups, all that stuff, the invoicing, kind of what any solopreneur probably knows. I would be that guy that wears all the hats.
Lots of hats, right? So the biggest distinction for you is simply, you have some autonomy, but you also have responsibility that goes beyond just the job, right?
Correct.
And so I feel like, the distinction is often left to like, how do you make decisions and how are you able to prioritize and manage what's important to get it done and do all the different things, right?
Sure.
But in your world, what percentage is unknown versus known? I feel like it's pretty consistent and stable in your world, which is good.
It is. I engineered it that way because I'm a conservative guy, and so I like guarantee. I like black and white, and so the contract work that I do, like, it's year-round work. I know, as we kind of just chatted about, I know what I'm getting paid every week. It's pretty set it and forget it at this point. And so that works well with my personality.
So I feel like it's worth like drilling in though, breaking the stigma of the entrepreneurial unknown, right? Because often it comes from our motivations in terms of like being able to life design or choose the way you want to live. You nailed it. And so we'll unpack this back to, there was a season where you weren't a solopreneur, you were more of an entrepreneur. And there was a season where you also were an employee, right? And so the quick background, really high level, born and raised where? Tell us about your family. And then quick jaunt into school, but that's where the story will begin. So give me that quick version, getting this up to your professional first career.
So I grew up Buffalo, so just up the road here. Josh, you actually live in my faux St. Michael, Albertville. Those guys, oh man, in sports, they were always a thorn in our side. But I grew up in Buffalo, Christian household. Prayed, before dinner, before going to bed, went to church, Sunday school, that whole thing. I grew up with 2 brothers. Sports, that's all we did. It was just sports year-round, nonstop, and we loved it. And that was kind of our upbringing. In terms of, kind of that next step in terms of our faith, it was easy for us growing up because all of our best friends and teammates were in youth group together. We went to church together, so it was just super simple to kind of stay on that path. In terms of kind of moving on beyond high school, I went to the University of Minnesota for a year to be a teacher. I transferred to St. Cloud State where I finished my teaching degree, met my wife there, and we both became teachers.
Boom.
That's where we got. And funny, my older brother was also a teacher, and so of course teachers, we don't have anything to do in the summertime, right? So we're like, hey, let's see if we can make some side income. And we went to my uncle who owns a construction cleanup company, and he kind of guided us in saying, hey, like, if you guys want to kind of do your own thing, make a little bit of a side income, why don't you try window cleaning? And so naturally, my brother and I, having no idea what we're doing, say, let's try it out. And so we started a residential window cleaning company, just cleaning windows for friends and family and that sort of thing. And kind of grew by word of mouth. And a couple years later, I stopped teaching and pursued that full time, and
that's incredible.
Kind of
so 2 years of teacher, 3 years of teacher. What was the kind of official timeline?
It's like it was like 2.5 years, because I was like half in 1 year and then 2 full years. So I was like 2.5 years of teaching.
Gotcha. So that would have been like the back half of spring.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so the reason to me this is fascinating is oftentimes that we have this massive mountain in our head to climb when it comes to this word entrepreneurship. Like, it's, you know, people don't necessarily always describe themselves as that, or maybe aspiring is even hard to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about solopreneur, you know, in the context of now, but before you got there, you built a business not knowing anything about business
right.
around delivering service, doing good work, which takes your brain and your body, but you jumped in because you needed to provide, and you didn't just want to go get a job because you're like, hey, you know, maybe we could have a little flexibility, right? Whatever motivations. But the beginning part was I wanted some side income, right? And a lot of people start with that. Like, I want some side income. In your case, you know, it's not on top of a day job. It's in addition to a season where you have time, which is great. And for the business you're in, residential, it seems like it was go time.
It worked really well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it could complementary to what you were doing. But so then, okay, we need some side, led to, well, this thing has some opportunities here. Customers need us. Let's grow. How big did you grow? Tell us about the journey from, you know, startup with your brother to the point at which you sold it, right? So what was that timeline, and kind of walk us through that?
Yeah. So like you said, we started it in the summer just with my brother, just like I said, with friends and family, and I don't know if it's people felt bad for us or whatever, but they started telling people about our work. So just like you said, it kind of was. That first summer was a learning process. That second summer was kind of like, hey, we're starting to get some momentum here. Like, we're kind of having more work than we can handle. And so we started to get a couple college kids to come work with us. And, you know, pretty soon we were at that point where it was like we don't have the capacity to serve all these people. And to be quite honest with you, we had a website, right? Like, we did some flyers and that sort of thing, but it really was just, I think that first year, the groundwork we laid was just, we showed up on time. You know, we were really just careful. We showed people that their house, that's their temple. And we just wanted to go above and beyond and say, hey, we're in your house. We're going to make sure you got nothing to worry about. And I think that just resonated with people. And it kind of was just a word of mouth thing those first couple of years. And then kind of that third year is when, you know, we had employees, and now we brought on a part-time office person to kind of help with appointments and scheduling and that sort of thing. And so it got to that point where I was like, hey, let's do this, like, you know, and let's go for it. And my older brother just said, you know what, I like the summers doing it, but like, I'm going to continue my teaching thing. And so he stayed a partner in the business, and I kind of took it and ran with it, basically. And that's when I wasn't teaching anymore, and now I could focus solely on the business. And I think the game-changing point was I knew that residential was seasonal. And so, you know, depending on weather, spring, you know, you might not get started till May, depending on what we're doing. We might still have snow on the ground in April.
Right.
And depending on, again, what happens in November, you might literally only have 6 months of go time, right? And so I knew, I'm like, we got to have a year-round kind of a cash flow. And so I don't even remember how I went about it, but I met an owner of a building maintenance company who did window cleaning year-round. Started with him kind of just on a relationship basis, and really he took me under his wing and really taught me business and growing a business and employees, because I was kind of doing that all on my own, learning as I went.
No formal training, right?
No formal training. And I think he was eager. I was eager to learn, and I showed up for him, and I was there. I did whatever he needed, and he could count on me. And I think he saw that, and he was like, I want to take this young kid under my wing. And so I'm dragging on here, but
it's good.
That was kind of the catapulting our growth, was that he really helped me with going to get more customers. This is how you do it. Here's how you hire employees. Here's how you train them. I got to work with his office staff and how to handle office and accounting and all that stuff. I learned taxes. And
What was his primary business?
his primary business that is all window cleaning.
So this is the guy that then eventually you
that's correct.
sold to.
That's correct.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
This is great. So that relationship, that mentorship, happened for how long until the conversations were shifting towards let's do something together?
Yep. So I was probably working with them 2 years.
Okay.
At the time, just fully just working for him, right?
Yeah.
He's giving me work, I do the work, and then it was kind of like just some conversations started in terms of, man, I'd like to grow more, and we just started talking about what that would look like, and I think he saw that I was eager for something bigger, I guess, and so then we just he was like, hey, I like what you're doing, I think you're doing a great job, but I mean, he's like, I'm at that point, I want to start thinking about retiring, and so then this conversation came into, all right, well, what would this look like? Could we partner? Could we do something on that regard? And I mean, we went as far as, we met with attorneys to talk about business sales and how we would sell his business and that sort of thing. And, I ended up not buying his business. The reason only being my wife and I, we got pregnant around that COVID time. And it was just, I was working 80 hours a week at the time. She was doing her master's and teaching full time. And so we both were busy, and it worked at that time. But kid, it's like, this needs a change.
Right.
And so as we kind of touched on, I needed to make that choice. Was I going to go head first, hire an operations manager, do that whole thing to try and grow my business? Or was I going to say, you know what, I think I need to scale back and just kind of know what's my bread and butter that I know how to do, have a steady income, and focus on we're starting a family. Yeah. And so, the conversation literally turned from I'm going to buy his business to he literally helped me out, and he bought my business, basically.
That's so incredible.
It's an incredible story. The guy is such a mentor, and he's done so much for me.
So, I can't speak enough to just the value sometimes of older sages in our life, whether it's in our faith or as a husband or a father, like some of that stuff bleeds in if they have, good character. But then when they have the business and they want to see you flourish, what kind of lessons do you think you learned specifically that you look back and say, problem solving or certain types of ways of setting things up that really stuck with you? Because I feel like in the space that I'm in now, I love pouring into guys because I feel like it's such a gap. It's not a thing to go into life locking arms with dudes that have been in the path before you. It's just, you have to informally turn it into formal, and that's hard. Right. So for the fact that this kind of showed up and then it turned into a deal, so a couple of things. Tell me about what he taught you. But then how did you recognize the transition for that decision to happen, that you needed to go into this other path and go solopreneur? Right.
Yeah. I can give you a couple quotes from him that really stick with me. Like when I was kind of hounding him. I'm like, hey, I want to do something with you. I want to grow. Like, can we partner? Can we do? And he didn't say no, but he was kind of just like, he didn't.
One thing at a time.
Yeah. And I think the more that I hounded him, then he started saying, like, the quote I remember was like, just be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. And I know now what he means by that because, as a window cleaner, as the guy that's out there doing the work, having some employees, right? Some college kids and having a part-time office staff, like, that's doable. Right. But then you get into that level of, okay, he's running, 3 to 4 office staff, maybe 15, 20 guys.
In the field cleaning.
Just be careful what you wish for, because there's headaches that you just don't even know about. And
boy, was that a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Very much so. And I mean, I can say that, like, he was big into saying, what you have going right now is very good. You're doing a great job, right? Like, just be careful. Yeah. Kind of, we all have these wide eyes of, like, to be a business owner, I want to run a big business. I think that's glamorous. And that can be. It can be. Sure. But that was just really interesting when he said that, and how that kind of all came to fruition, that I found out that I'm good at running employees. I'm good at it. I don't enjoy it.
So that's the lesson learned in that. So you actually came full circle, saw the business grow, and how many employees then did you have through that summer season?
Yeah.
When you're at the best.
Yeah. So because again, we had some seasonal guys, some college kids, had some full timers. So I would say if you average in the seasonal guys along with our full timers, we had like six guys cleaning out in the field. Myself cleaning out in the field,
right,
and an office person, so like 7 or 8 of us.
So then his business is 3, 4, 5 times your
Correct.
size, right?
Yep.
And so at that point, you probably realized, okay, hey, maybe there's an opportunity to partner with this guy, and I'm going to buy his business. He's going to groom me in to take over this thing.
100%.
And at the time, then you were cleaning and taking on a new side hustle, which was unpaid. It's mentorship management.
It was unpaid.
Right? And that's the kind of stuff that's like, do whatever it takes. I hope it pays fruit. But you learn a different lesson in that. And I think sometimes we want something and God shows us a different answer. And it's frustrating. But were you frustrated at that answer being, I need to make a change? Did something actually break? I should say it this way too.
No, nothing broke. I'm a very planful, systematic. I like guarantees. I like knowing what's happening. And I can get kind of worked up and stressed out when things aren't
in that order.
And like things need to be smooth, right? Like I'm like, I know I show up at the job site, I do good work, like things should go smooth, but you start adding 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different moving parts. It doesn't go like that, and that's hard for me in my mind, right? And so my mentor, Dave is his name, another thing that really stuck out to me is like, as you grow, as you get bigger, you have to have an acceptable failure percentage. It's like what he said. You have to have an acceptable failure rate, and knowing that, let's say you serve 1,000 customers, expect that 3% or whatever it is, you're going to have problems, and you just have to know that going in. And at the end of the day, he always told this to me when he could tell I was just flustered and stressed with this guy didn't show up, or he left early, or we got to reschedule these 7 houses today because it rained. He just said, Jordan, did anybody die today? And it was just one of those
such
things.
Great perspective.
He just said,
right?
like, you know what, we're still here. Did anybody die today? Like,
gratitude, man. Right?
Yep.
That's good. And okay, so at what point did you realize I don't want to run a big business and I would rather have some of my time and my life back? Because your wife was pregnant at this time?
It was, like when she got pregnant and she pretty much said, Jordan, that our lifestyle can't
continue this way.
And so I kind of took in the past few years that I'd been working with my mentor, seeing how busy how much he was devoted to keeping his business running. And I just knew deep down, I'm like, I can't commit to that in this season of life. And so that was the decision. I said, I know what I feel like I need to do. I know what I'm good at. I know my personality. This is what I need to do in this season. And so again, like you said, nothing broke. Great relationship, and gosh, the guy ended up buying my business. I mean,
unreal. So you backed out of the in training mode.
Correct.
And then he bought.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So that was almost an important kind of transition, because you're like, well, now I see what this looks like or what this could be, but now the other side of the coin was, I'm going to have a family and I need something consistent. And I remember when I was loving being in sales and retail, but I saw the writing on the wall was, if I was going to stay in sales and even pursue sales management or general management at Best Buy stores, they were making 6 figures at sales manager level. And I was like, this is awesome. but I saw that they were there all the time.
Yes.
Crazy hours, and especially through the holidays, right? And so at some point when you taste something you haven't had before and you get a piece of it, right?
Yep.
You get a little something.
Yep.
Some people want more, or they realize what it is that they don't want, right? So for you, you're like, I got to shift little priorities and focus. So then how did your anything change when you went from selling the business to continuing on? But the big gap was time for you, right? Big change in time. So what was that transition like?
Yeah, I think, because like we said, when I was in training mode with him, right? Like I was cleaning windows, I was working most of my days, right? But whether it was after hours, on Zoom calls with him, like kind of talking over employees and that
Just
sort of thing.
Extra noise,
stuff.
right?
Or maybe I probably would go down to his offices down in the cities. I probably would go down to the office a couple days a week. Whether that's, maybe I'd do a half a day of work in the morning and go down to the office. And honestly, Josh, I mean, there were times I'm down there till 11 o'clock midnight because we're just trying to hammer out, just what does this business look like? What is our partnership going to look like? That sort of thing. And just kind of crash course on it all. Like I got to see, I never knew what garnishments from people's wages were, right? Like we have employees that, hey, we got to take garnishments out because he has to pay child support or she has to, like
that one's even new for me.
There's so much that I just, you just don't know.
No, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And so, anyways, time wise, I would say that I still was working really hard. I mean, I'm out cleaning glass 10 hours a day. Like, so the time wise, it's still physically demanding, but the mental clarity and the mental time my mind just was free because I had spent the past 2 to 3 years working 80-hour weeks trying to just wrap my mind on how can this work. And I find, it just kind of allowed for clarity of my mental space.
Well, and I think it's an important reminder too for anyone, in a corporate role, in a trades business, whether you're, a manager, an employee, or an owner. There's a level of responsibility that you have and capacity and tolerance, right? Like my wife and I, if we were to sit side by side, I would scale really, really high on the capacity side. And it's like, bring it on. And she's like, don't say another word because I'm good where we're at.
Sure.
And that's important because, then we were given 5 kids. And then what happens, Josh has businesses. And so those things even add stress to her life. And what I had to learn is I didn't even realize the stress that I was, was working through me, even though I'm high capacity, into my regular life. And she got that stress just because it was me doing that, right? And so we're not all made for that. But now it's been a couple years, right? And the balance is sort of evening out. How do you find the balance of just doing the job, right? This is the stuff we all have to do sometimes. That might just be spreadsheet work for somebody or just doing some key tasks, bookkeeping. But then the creative side, like the biz side, the growing the business side, do you still find now you had enough training and learning that you can kind of do a little bit of both still, but and design your own schedule and have some freedom a little bit, minus the PTO. We'll talk about that. Don't you have lots of paid time off?
I don't even know what that definition is. Someone said PTO, and I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Paid time off. So they don't have that in Solopreneur world.
No. You can take as much time as you want.
It's true.
I don't know about that pay part.
Yeah, how's that work, right? So it comes with these trade-offs. But so for you, what were the biggest trade-offs now? If you say right now in your life, what are you getting the most out of as a well-balanced life, right? Not just the work. I'm talking about your life. Because I think in the context of the way you explain it, I think it would be helpful for others to say, this is what I have and I love it compared to a job. Right? Because those are different things.
For sure. Yeah, I can look at that and say what I really like about the way I have structured my business, you could say, Solopreneur now, is like I get to be out cleaning and making money, but I have a lot of time to be able to fill my brain with other things while I'm working. And shout out to Chris, who is going to be editing this podcast, I believe. Love that guy. He turned me on to a podcast that just dives deep into the Bible, and man, I get to be making money, cleaning windows, doing whatever, but I'm getting to be in the text. I'm getting to listen to Bible studies and that sort of thing. And so, you got
to say the podcast.
It's the Bema podcast. So
yeah,
if you guys want to go listen to the Bema podcast, Chris will be ever grateful because that guy's all in on that podcast, and I am too. It's great.
Yeah, and I've learned a few things myself.
Yeah. But that is a trade-off. Like I know that what I'm doing right now, I've capped my upside in terms of income. But I also know that I look back at what I was doing and kind of where that was trending, and I look at what I'm doing now, and I get to say, do you know how many people would like to say that they have individuality? I control myself. I'm managing myself. I get to be outside when it's nice out, not in the winter. Like enjoying the weather, listening to podcast. Like some people would say that's a dream job, and you're making how much? Like you make how much and you save how much?
Right.
Like I got to really look at that and say the lifestyle and the opportunity that I get to just kind of be myself and do that on a daily basis, that's worth a lot.
It is.
That's worth a lot. And so I have to kind of balance that. And like you say, that creativity side, I do go after some larger projects and some bigger things that I am still doing. So it's not like I'm totally out of that creative side and business building, but it's definitely on a smaller scale than what I was.
But you get the balance, you get the flexibility to if you wanted a website, if you wanted to do marketing, if you wanted to grow your business, but that's the difference versus the guy with a job, which is again great, but the upside for him is determined often by what his boss says or what the company does for performance, what they choose to give him for performance raises. And so the biggest switch of the pendulum is time, effort, energy, capacity that you're wishing to fuel, right? And so in some cases, the season you're in has been, how do I feed and learn and grow in myself, right? I'm making money doing that.
Yep.
I don't have to have my head down in some complicated problem, mess. I get to actually get paid and consume information and learn.
Right.
And then it's actually impacting my marriage. It's impacting the believer that I've become. So maybe shift gears. I love this. It's just such a fascinating idea to think that, freedom is not free, and certainly it's not. It all comes with a cost.
For sure.
But freedom in Christ is the foundation of all freedom. And then there's this next level of financial freedom and freedom of time, right? And so I feel like the best thing of all in terms of purpose is being able to do what you're most gifted and passionate in, but then the freedom of the time and money, so you don't have to make the trade-off. So what they say is the best artists in the world sometimes are the starving artists, and they're gonna die with ever getting their stuff published, because they do it because they love it.
Yeah.
And they get to do that, but they're not free in terms of financial.
Right.
They get to spend their free time doing it, and that's amazing. But then when you have the win-win-win is, living in your purpose, using your gifts, reaching others, choosing time how you want. What's next in terms of where you want to go, right? So you've kind of poured into your self-development, and even in our conversations today, living the life you want. One would say, I have it now. Be careful what you wish for.
For sure, 100%.
But 100%. What does next look like? What does bigger look like? And maybe bigger isn't better. Maybe best is what? What does best look like?
Yeah, best. I can just kind of say we touched a little bit on, if you talk about a struggle that I have spiritually, like my pride, right? So I'm prideful in the fact that, what I do is, as a window cleaner, that kind of is it doesn't garner a lot of respect, right? And so that's something that I struggle with in terms of that prideful situation. But I would say best is just, I want to be able to focus on making money, of course. Like we got to make money. But I'm just going to throw Chris Barrett, the guy who is going to edit this podcast. Like, this guy has recently just has a fire that has been lit in his belly for just the Lord. And I look at him and I'm like, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about, man, how can I squeeze out some more income, and how can I squeeze out more time for me to be able to, maybe focus on me and my life and that sort of thing. And this guy's over here just saying, like, I don't know what he's calling me to do, but I'm trying to be obedient, and he is just on fire. And so I think best for me is finding that middle ground. Like, Chris is a special case. Like, that guy is on fire. And I'm not saying that I'm not on fire for him, but I'm also very conservative. And I'm like, I got to have my job. I got to have my money.
Yeah.
And so I think best for me is finding that middle ground where I can support my family, but can I give? Can I steward? Can I do that? And I don't know what that looks like, but
it's powerful. You say something that resonates with me a lot, because one of the big things I found in my own journey was, ministry is for the pastors and for the missionaries. And, I believe in God, and I go to church. I'm going to lead a small group. And I know what checkbox Christianity is, because I've seen how not living and being focused on Jesus that checkbox Christianity, what it'll do is it'll get you checking boxes, but not changing the way you think, eat, sleep, and breathe, and how you witness and how you live your life. And so when you say these things, a lot of the time, the biggest gap for many people is time to be able to devote in that. And so you're feeding your brain, right, with that, which is foundational, right? Being able to continue to feed on the word. We feed ourselves every day, right? Why do we have such a hard time feeding ourselves with the word of God? And I look in the mirror every time I say that, but that was one of the game changers I had to figure out, right? And I'm sure just by even the podcast and even the word and scripture and devotional itself is huge. So there's that. But to your point about like, how do I make more money? It's this conundrum often of why is it so hard for the rich man to enter the kingdom of God?
Amen, man. Amen.
Why? And it's not because being rich is bad. It's because of what it can do to the heart and the mind and the focus, right? Because if the focus is on income or finances, often our head is not on God, and it's not on things of this of the world. It's on things of the world instead of Him. And so when you say these things, and I think about Chris, who I know as well, an incredible guy, is my journey is you don't have to necessarily think about them as independent, right? And my aha moment was we can live in Christ and have freedom in Him, but how does that now impact the way we do business and how I share my faith and what God's done with the people that I'm working with and my customers or business partners or even my own friends and family. And so isn't that what we're all called to do? Absolutely. Right? So that next level then is how do we steward this story? And so, finding the freedom of time and money, it comes down to what is the ends? Well, it's to serve Him better. If that's the case, then boy, this is where I go back to how do we use now what we've talked about as a baseline? If we grow your business to a point where your business paid itself, paid for a manager, and allowed you your freedom of time,
right?
And you could still scratch the itches entrepreneurially, could you find that free time in a way of helping and serving others in a way that points people to Jesus?
Right.
Because I feel like the answer, if Jesus said, hey, go sell everything and come follow me, we would say, I'm in. But right now we go, no, sorry, I have a job. I have to show up, right? I got people that need me. That's our excuse.
Yep.
So as much as I love business, I love the fact that my hardest lesson and greatest gifts came from using my gifts and skills that He gave me abusively to come full circle into my sin that I needed to change to follow Him first.
Right.
And then guess what? Guilty as charged again. Here I am trying to pour into men, right? 6 a.m. I'm over here getting the studio set up and I don't get to see my kids go to school, but these are trade-offs, right? And so it's not easy. It's not easy. So thanks for sharing about Chris, who sets the bar really high, my friend.
Yes, he does.
And at the same time, the challenge is for all of us, right? To live in our giftings. So I would just, as we kind of wind down, thinking about how Bema podcast and your time to just digest various podcasts, including this one. I've heard you say.
Yeah, for sure.
What is Jesus doing for you right now in this season? How is He leading you and guiding you to take steps further to Him?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, the crux kind of the Bema podcast is like, we believe that Jesus is our Savior, right? But there's so much in the Bible that we can look at from different commentaries in terms of it means this. The biggest thing that I've taken from it is like, legitimately, what did Jesus do? It was like, okay, obviously He showed love and He showed compassion, right? And it's not our job to decide who deserves that love and that compassion.
He showed us that everyone does, right?
And what really and I kind of always knew that, but what really hit for me has been like, God is sovereign. Like He is the nucleus of the universe, and everything moves in motion to perfection. And for me to just know that if I just try and be loving and I try and show people a little glimpse of Jesus, like God does the rest. Like I don't have to try and rack myself to say,
so good,
I need to save this person, or like just be a reflection of Jesus, and God takes care of the rest.
A friend of mine told me, we're responsible for being obedient, not for the outcomes. And so what you shared right there is so good, because it's like, those little promptings he gives us as you speak with people and being able to pour in truths. He just wants us to be obedient in that. He's not asking you to ask them to get on their knees and say the sinner's prayer, right? Because guess what? He's going to use all of it. He doesn't waste it. And so the fact of the matter is, if we think about the parable of the sower, there's 75% of the time the seed's falling into spots where it's not going to grow. But if we're not taking any at-bats, we don't even have a chance that the 1 in 4 is going to hit good soil. Right. And the way we fertilize and the way we can just live our lives. And so the hardest part is in our homes, I feel like, and yesterday was such a wild deal. Brief story to get this right. I was called and accused of being a fraud twice, not only by US Bank, who shut down all of my business accounts due to funny business, which is a whole nother problem, but in my own home, because sometimes the way we act to our wives isn't exactly the person that we intend to be, but that's who shows up. It's sometimes drastically different than the person that other people see.
Right.
And so when there's that disconnect, there's that imposter, that person who's deceiving someone by the way they are. It's so for me, like, I'm on my knees saying, God, how can I have this faith and love for you and to serve you, but then I fail with the person I'm supposed to love the most in this world, right? And so on that note of being fraudulent, how do you on a day-to-day basis just straight up check yourself against that word fraud? Like, and I think that real quick, the definition is intentionally trying to deceive. And so I don't think that's the case in either of these I mentioned. No. But one word stood out to me, is in the definition is about qualities. So if my qualities of who I am as a person are intended to be this to the world, which is Jesus-like,
right?
But then my qualities, in some ways, when I can't control my tongue, like we were talking about, and the tone, come out like this, the fraud could potentially come out, right? And so as you process just life and sin is in this world, how does that resonate with you, like as a believer, and how it affects your being a father, a husband, a business person?
Yeah, for sure.
How do you reconcile that daily?
It's hard. It really is hard. I will say that one of the biggest things that I find myself being hypocritical with is the money security side of things, like of this world. Like, I listened to a sermon recently, and the pastor said, like, are you building your kingdom here, or are you building your kingdom down the line, right? And so I just find myself spending a lot of brain space, as you just said, kind of just on my finances, on investing, I'm setting Jordan and his family up for down the line, right? But how many times does you just say that none of that matters? Like, that is, you are missing the boat.
Careful what you wish for,
and
right?
I'm a smart guy. I know that I'm missing the boat, but yet my mind just gets caught up in that security, right?
Oh, and where does that come from?
Right?
Where does that come from? If it's not of love, it's not of God, which means it's of the
devil,
enemy,
it's
right?
The enemy, man.
And so that's their biggest challenge. What I learned about Bema is recognizing that, maybe the snake was or wasn't talking.
Yep.
But the reality is that our flesh every day tells us these lies. We say, what about this? Did God really say that? Right? And like, even when I'm not the guy I want to be, it's like, I should just shut up right now. I should not continue on this path, right? So, it's such a good reminder, though, and the vulnerability just to be able to say, hey, there is the tone that I have with my wife, you shared, and there is the voice and the shouting that I have in me. To be able to just come to him and say, God, I know I need to just get on my knees because I don't have control of it, and you're the only one with control.
Absolutely.
Well, dude, appreciate your time. So great to have you on the show and learn about the honest truth of Solopreneur.
That's right.
In aspiring entrepreneurship back to the world of fulfillment, right?
Absolutely.
Isn't that what it's about? So thanks so much, Jordan. And we'll see you on the next time we have you on the show.
Sounds good, man.
Actually, no, I'll see you before that.
We'll see you before that.
Yeah. Take care. Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Successfully Unsuccessful. We'll see you next time.